Public Bills, second reading.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the National Agency for Drug Control Bill number 6 of 2025 be read a second time.
Yes, seconded. Yes.
Madam Speaker, I move that this bill be read a second time. This bill in front of the House is yet another concrete expression of the determination of this government to honor its pledge of renewal to the nation. Madam Speaker, I had occasion in the last few months to address the House on the appalling dilapidation of our institutions and the pillars of governance of our country. This was not accidental or adventitious. The nation at large has taken cognizance of the catastrophic state of our economy, brought on by years of reckless decisions, deliberate sabotage of those perceived to have an adverse political affiliation to the previous government. And it resulted in hundreds of millions of US dollars in costly awards and judgments against the state. Equally alarming is the nefarious legacy of drug addiction. Drug addiction, drug trafficking, and other drug-related crimes that the previous government has bequeathed us. The previous government failed dismally to combat the escalation of the drug crisis in Mauritius. It almost appears, I'm tempted to say appears, to have been deliberately delayed action to tackle drug trafficking, drug addiction, and halt the proliferation of drug-related crimes. As a responsible government, we are duty-bound to do away with the previous regime's toxic legacy arising from years of ineptitude, indifference, and the obvious nexus between the drug barons and the MSM. And Madam Speaker, an American journalist, David Schreiberg, had written in an issue of Newsweek about the deadly dangers of drug proliferation. I want to quote him because it says exactly what we are saying. It says, and I quote, "The largest, richest, and deadliest criminal enterprise in history is penetrating deeply into civil structures that make democracy what it is. Justice systems, police forces, political parties, legislatures, electoral campaigns, government ministries, and presidential palaces." This, Madam Speaker, rings a very uncomfortable, it is recognizable, this bell, with all those who have observed with growing dismay the conduct of the previous government and the disconcerting admission of the previous Prime Minister, who said that, he admitted, the drug mafia has infiltrated all our institutions. Prime Minister saying that after nearly 10 years in power. Of course, we are familiar with that type of behavior from the party that brought us so many infamous and shameful moments. Let me just recall the highlights of that tawdry, I think we could call it cinema. The House may recall how in 1985, a bunch of notorious drug traffickers was invited officially to the garden party at Le Rodrigues for independence celebration, where they lighted firecrackers and were shouting, "Gouvernement donne la main, nous pouvons faire ce que nous voulons." It seems a new breed of traffickers still considered, until they were booted out, that Gouvernement donne la main, and it was during the lost and wasted decade of the MSM-led government. Then there were the episode of the Amsterdam boys, 4 MPs traveling with diplomatic passports. And Madam Speaker, believe it or not, those passports were given on a Saturday morning. The PMO was open for them. Were instruction to open the PMO and give them these diplomatic passports because they had to have diplomatic immunity. As you know, Madam Speaker, as we all know, they were arrested in December 1985 in possession of 20 kilograms of heroin worth 36 million rupees at the time. And I bet you, had they not been arrested in Amsterdam, they would have walked in here with red carpet treatment. That is what the previous government did. That is the mentality. In 2000, and who can forget the hilarious and yet very serious incident when an exhibit of heroin in the custody of the police, when it was brought to court, it turned out to be la mouche chinoise. You can see the nexus. There has been cooperation right across the board. In 2017, one Viren Pirumal, a notorious drug trafficker, some people call him the Godfather, he deposed at the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking, chaired by former Judge Navinchandra. He explained the modality of his contribution. At that time, he said 30 million rupees he spent to finance the electoral campaign of the MSM in 2014. 30 million. One drug trafficker. The Commission of Inquiry heard from the drug trafficker, Viren Pirumal, that he kept his representation in-house. You can understand what that means. Closed circuit. All were members of the party of the government then. According to him and another dealer, one Siddiq Islam, even informed the commission that they paid their counsel, believe it or not, with drug money. And counsel accepted. This is how the MSM operated. In 2018, the Commission of Inquiry also referred, and I'm quoting, to very disturbing facts concerning one barrister at law representing Mr. Perumal, and close to the previous government, who at the time occupied important positions. The Commission report underscores, and it says, I quote, those controlling the casinos, the gambling houses, horse racing, where the Commission has reason to believe, in the light of the various testimonies it received, they are the temples of money laundering, but the accomplices of the drug traffickers, and it is a matter of concern. The Commission of Inquiry, Madam Speaker, expressed scathing criticism of the activities of certain barristers at law, as going far beyond ethical, professional, and legal constraints in the representation of notorious drug traffickers engaging in the conduct amounting to an attempt to pervert the court of justice. Do you really believe this? Barristers perverting the court of justice? The Commission of Inquiry mentions how a lady minister of the government, Honourable Mrs. Rubina Jadou John Bakas, had visited 17 detainees in less than 3 hours and without being solicited. She came, voluntarily, as if. On another occasion, she visited 15 detainees and groups of detainees. Thereby, the Commission says, when you have a group of detainees together, they're all accused of drug dealing. You bring them together. You're facilitating the exchange of information between them. A barrister doing this. It was also established that she had been in communication with the most notorious convicted drug trafficker, again this Mr. Viren Pirumal. That is why they all shouted the name, the pet name, Kala Prison. That is the name. Another one, Jiva, and one Botswa, explained how they had been enticed not to implicate certain persons and to dévier l'enquête. They're very strong at that. You're seeing the FCC arresting people. There are going to be attempts to dévier l'enquête. But I tell them, those who want to do this, think again. We have the response to them. In 2017, Madam Speaker, a record seizure of heroin made the headlines. 119.5 kilograms of heroin, worth 1.8 billion rupees, was found on board of a ship among imports from a company called Brilliant Resource Consulting Limited, owned by whom? By one Jiachan Devdani. His proximity with the leader of the MSM is well known. At first, I didn't know him. And David Daniel responded, ask him who used to put Brazil, Camaro dans le frigidaire. Bread songs. And what happened afterwards? Madam Speaker, is shocking. He's arrested. The Prime Minister said he doesn't know him. Then he made these remarks, and then, believe it or not, by magic, the provisional charges were dropped, completely dropped, as if nothing happened. Encore une fois, l'enquête indébirée. Equally shocking, in 2019, 95 kilos of cocaine, estimated at they don't talk about millions, these people, billions, 1.4 billion rupees, hidden in a tractor bed. It escaped the control of the custom officers at the port, despite the fact the port was fully equipped with modern equipment and sniffing dogs to detect drugs. No, it went through. What is even more striking is that the cocaine traveled alongside Mauritius. That is the first metro tram which reached Mauritius. And believe it or not, the tram came out. Who was there? The whole cabinet with the Prime Minister welcoming everybody. The tram has come. And the tram has come with drugs right in front of the nose. And you know, Madam Speaker, nobody up to now has been arrested. Nobody. As usual, l'enquête dévirée. We know, Madam Speaker, that regrettably, cocaine is used as a recreational drug of some of the most affluent classes in our country. But the law cannot apply and does not apply to only one class of persons. As I said in the recent passing out ceremony for police constables, and I quote again, we cannot allow unruly elements who may have thought they are above the law to threaten the very fabric of our society. No one is above the law. I'm tempted to quote this great judge who became master of the rolls, Lord Denning. This is what he said: to every citizen of this land, however powerful, I would use Thomas Fuller's words over 300 years ago, be ne'er so high, the law is still above you. Madam Speaker, while the Labour government has invested to transform Grand Bassin into Gangatalao, to transform it into a peaceful spiritual sanctuary, some were busy transforming an area very close to Gangatalao into a narco sanctuary. That's what they did. The previous government, under the very suspicious conditions, granted a lease to Eco-Deer Park. It was found out subsequently that the land had been converted into a fancy rave party, where stag party, cochon marron, drugs, alcoholic drinks were available at gogo. And at least one previous minister, probably two, I'm told, were there. And no less a person than the former Attorney General of this country. This is the level we had reached. The case is being investigated just now by the FCC, so I won't make more comments. And then, Madam Speaker, who has not heard of Hubert Célerine, better known as Franklin, notorious roi de l'Ouest, who was actively involved in many questionable activities perpetrated with the apparent blessing of the political masters of the day. He was even allowed to occupy state land in this salubrious land at Rivière-Noire. And when there were civil requests for his extradition from Réunion Island, where he had been already sentenced to imprisonment, he didn't want to go into prison. So what do? They protect him. The then government deliberately tried to prevent his extradition. So many times, the Attorney General the then Attorney General was answering questions here, looking for little change in the phrases to say that they're looking into it, they're looking in. As usual, with the MSM, they're always looking into it. When he was finally extradited, why? Because of public outcry and the then opposition. What happened? He was given VVIP treatment. enjoying the comfort of business class. See, this is how drug barons were treated by the former regime. It begs the question, Madam Speaker, is it sheer coincidence that each time the MSM has been in power, each time we saw a prolific resurgence of drug traffickers in the country? Is it a coincidence? We sing the same saga since 1985. And after 10 years, we've just seen, we have to see, everybody knows, le ravage et le tort que la drogue est en train de faire à notre jeunesse. This is the legacy of the MSM. This is the legacy. We have stated in no uncertain terms in the government program that the fight against drug trafficking and use will be one of the main priorities of the government. We have no choice. Every government has to defend the citizens of the country. We will implement bold measures to end the suffering of families with an unflinching resolve to deal with this major societal scourge. It is important, Madam Speaker, to make a distinction between the victim of drug abuse and the trafficker. In this respect, let me remind the House what the late Sir Maurice Rowe said way back in 1986 in his report of the Commission of Inquiry on Drugs, which he chaired. He said, addiction is the modern form of slavery. The addict is chained to the trafficker by bonds as cruel as those who tied the slave to his lord. And he runs the same risk of moral defilement since he cannot disobey his master, and he can be compelled to cheat, to steal, or even sell his body. That's what he said in his report. Madam Speaker, the National Agency for Drug Control, this bill, represents a crucial step in fulfilling our commitment to fight against this blight, which is posing a significant threat to the health, security, and future of our nation. It has taken the proportion of as if a serious epidemic. Today we present not just a legal framework, but a vision for a safer Mauritius free from the devastating impact of this deadly threat. For the first time in the country, Madam Speaker, we are proposing a fully integrated strategy actionable by an agency that will bring together all the various public bodies involved in it, all under one roof, to combat drug trafficking, provide rehabilitation, and support families of the victims of drug abuse. The legal provisions in respect of trafficking, consumption, and treatment of drug addicts will be reviewed to cater entirely for differentiated treatment of traffickers and consumers. I remember, Madam Speaker, I was invited by the former President of the United States, President Clinton, at the Clinton Global Initiative. And during dinner, he asked me, are you using methadone in your country for treatment? I had to say no. I can't say I was aware of it either, but I said no. And he said it is one decision that he regretted when he was president. He regretted that he never used methadone. And he immediately made funds available for antiretroviral drugs for HIV patients and earmarked part of it for the provision of methadone. We received in all $36,270 US. And what happened when we lost the election in 2014? The previous minister said, methadone, not necessary. He stopped methadone. There was a prominent professor in La Réunion, gave an interview, I think in Express, but I'm not sure, when he said it is a huge mistake to stop methadone. And what happened? He had to backtrack and they restarted methadone afterwards. Trial and error. No scientific purpose in what they're doing. They just try this, try that. Because the previous government did this, stop it. And then they have to backtrack. The measures we are proposing to the House today, Madam Speaker, evince the determination of this government to address the multifarious challenges posed by drug abuse. Every day we witness disastrous consequences on families. We see how families, without distinction of class or community, they're totally shattered, how the healthcare system is having difficulties in coping with this problem, and how drug-related crimes are increasing. This is threatening our youth. Indeed, they are the future of our nation. The future of our nation is being threatened. Over recent years, Madam Speaker, no significant, effective and tangible measures have been taken to combat this crisis. It is abundantly clear that there was no genuine will to remedy the situation by the previous government. We all know how the conclusions and recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry on Drugs were mostly ignored, just a few here and there. The situation continued to deteriorate under their complacent or complicit watch. The previous government dismantled NATReSA and did not replace it with any alternative to carry out the important work of harm reduction. Nothing. Yet it is clear that the traditional approach to dealing with such a complex problem with wide-ranging ramifications is totally outdated today. The World Drug Report of 2023, Madam Speaker, warned of a proliferation of supply, demand, and use of synthetic drugs, as well as an increase in substance use disorders. The number of people using drugs has increased by 11% globally, but by as much as 40% in Africa in 2023. In response to the growing threats posed by synthetic drugs, the United States launched the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drugs Threats, aimed at accelerating the international efforts to tackle this rising crisis. As part of the Global Coalition Initiative, the government of the United States provided funding to the UNODC to conduct a detailed assessment of the threats posed by synthetic drugs. This project also evaluated the national and regional capacities of 6 East African countries. That included Mauritius. And look what the report says. It's not finalized yet, but we have part of it. As part of the assessment, in July of 2024, the UNODC conducted a study on synthetic drugs, especially in Mauritius. And among the main findings, and I quote, Mauritius has been identified as the leading user of synthetic cannabinoids. Leading user. The other findings include, they made comments, drug rehabilitation efforts within the public sector remain severely limited. Although methadone treatment is now available, other forms of treatment remain underdeveloped and inadequate. Psychological support and interventions, including traditional medicine where available, need further strengthening. In fact, they were not using anything. And with limited resources and insufficient follow-up, many individuals either fail to comply or become in relapse after finishing the treatment. Madam Speaker, the threat posed by synthetic cannabinoids and other drugs in Mauritius have already been highlighted in the Globalized Organized Crime Index of 2023, which measured actually 15 criminal markets, including drug markets, across 193 member states. And guess what? Guess what? Mauritius ranked out of the 193, 7th in regard to synthetic drugs, 7th, just behind South Africa. However, in spite of Mauritius forming part of the US Global Coalition since November 2023, the previous government just allowed the situation to worsen. They couldn't care less. It failed to realize the benefits. There were benefits and resources available through the coalition to strengthen the country's response, but they did nothing. This laxism amounts to gross negligence. I would say criminal negligence, coupled with the obvious proximity of notorious traffickers with the previous regime. They have contributed greatly to the quagmire we find ourselves today. I think, I'm not mincing my words, it is a tantamount to a betrayal of the whole nation of this country. We cannot and will not continue to pay lip service to the challenges related to national security, including those relating to drug trafficking. We know, Madam Speaker, most of the drugs available in Mauritius, from the reports we see from ATSU and all this, that most of it come from the sea. It is a fact that we can, not all, but most. It is a fact that we cannot deal with the drug problem in isolation. We cannot. We are partners through the Indian Ocean Commission with countries of the Indian Ocean for sharing of information and joint patrolling of our respective maritime zone. The actual Commissioner of Police, who was at ATSU, he was cooperating fully. We're getting advanced information, even, I said mostly from the sea, but even on planes. Information was shared. Here it seems with the MSM, not interested to share information. The Regional Maritime Information Fusion Center in Madagascar is responsible for producing a single recognized maritime picture of Western Indian Ocean and identifying vessels of interest. The Regional Operations Center in Seychelles is dedicated to the coordination of the regional operations at sea with respect to maritime safety and security in our region. But the truth is, Madam Speaker, the previous government failed to act on the information they received. It received on the suspicious movement of ships, most probably transporting substances through our waters, but they did not respond. I'll give you an example. In June of last year, there were 2 ships coming nearing our shores. One was heading to Seychelles, and the other one was heading here to Mauritius. The one that went to Seychelles, because they got information, was arraigned by the Seychelles authorities, and 900 kilograms of narcotics were seized. 900. However, what happened to the ships advancing in our waters? They were allowed to move freely. Nobody even stopped them. The police were made aware of this information. They were made aware. But either they got orders or they just turned a deaf ear, much to the dismay and astonishment of the Regional Maritime Information Center. Similarly, we have the assistance of countries like India, the United States, and France to enhance this regional maritime security architecture to combat on a broad range all the illegal activities on the high seas. And to reinforce maritime surveillance, we are setting up a National Maritime Information Sharing Center, which will be fully equipped to monitor, analyze, and report all vessels undertaking illicit activities in our EEZ. The invaluable support of the Government of India has been obtained to set up that center. The building is under construction, and an Indian naval officer is in Mauritius to assist in the setting up of this center. Also, with the assistance of the Government of Japan, a new coastal surveillance system will be installed to replace the old one which I had procured at the time when I was Prime Minister. They allowed it to just be out of service. Nobody was interested in having this because they did not want to monitor, in fact. Additionally, the operation of the Coast Guard is being thoroughly reviewed to ensure that information gathered regionally is used in an optimal way. Madam Speaker, under this government, the ATSU and the Customs Department had adopted a new approach to tracking drug dealers. I will obviously not mention what the new methods are. But from November 2024 to March 2025, we have witnessed a significant number of seizures of drugs amounting to an approximate value of 1.2 billion rupees. The police and the customs will be equipped with the state-of-the-art equipment to enable them to undertake their mandate in a more effective manner. Madam Speaker, since this new government came to power, it has started to devise ways and means to deal with the problem of drug abuse. I have listed the services, and I'm glad he's here, of the former Minister, Sam Lutan, and Dr. Faiz Al-Suleiman, who is also here. The latter, everybody knows Sam Lutan, but maybe not everybody knows Dr. Suleiman. The latter is a graduate from Johns Hopkins University from the United States of America. He possesses wide experience in addiction medicine and HIV/AIDS. Both of them have extensive experience in the field, and they will focus on prevention, treatment, and enforcement. More importantly, Madam Speaker, what we need is people who want to do something, not people who are going to sit there like, I don't know, des poupées en cire, doing nothing, just to show they are there and get money for it, getting paid for it. What we don't want is this. We want people who are determined, like these two gentlemen are, to put an end to this terrible scourge that is happening. They have worked already closely in collaboration with the Deputy Prime Minister, with the Attorney General, and my office. And within a short time, I must say, within a very short time, they have come up with a bill to set up an agency for drug control. We are indebted to them for the prompt and effective work. Madam Speaker, the bill will establish the National Agency for Drug Control as the apex body responsible for addressing all the problems that are connected with drug abuse. And also, not just Mauritius, but also Rodrigues. They will look through the reduction of supply, drug use prevention, treatment, and all this. It will be a balanced approach. This is in line with the most recent United Nations Resolution 79191 of 2024, which continues to stress the importance of a balanced approach, integrating measures for demand and supply reduction, and ensuring that drug control policies are in line with human rights obligations. It underscores the necessity of international cooperation and implementation of evidence-based practices in drug policy, not just somebody just dreams of something. It must be evidence-based. This is how you can fight this. Madam Speaker, let me give the House an outline of the bill. The bill provides for the setting up of this National Agency for Drug Control, which will have broader responsibilities and powers than the defunct National Agency for Treatment and Rehabilitation of Substance Abuse, that is NATReSA. Section 3 of the bill provides for the setting up of a National Drug Control Commission under my chairmanship and comprising of the Deputy Prime Minister as Vice Chairperson, the Minister of Health, the Attorney General, 8 ministers as enumerated in the first schedule when they are needed. Other ministers as the Prime Minister may designate. The Chief Commissioner of the Rodrigues Regional Assembly may, at the request of the Prime Minister, attend the Commission, and persons who have wide experience in medical and healthcare, drug use prevention, or treatment and rehabilitation, as I may designate. Section 4 of the bill defines the functions and powers of the National Drug Control Commission, which include, among others, setting up national objectives and goals, and determine policies and priorities with regard to drug control. Secondly, to oversee the overall coordination of all drug control activities in Mauritius. That is why I say it is under an apex body for greater collaboration and synergy among stakeholders. Also, to collect and analyze data and publish a brief statistical and analytical bulletin on a quarterly basis, and a comprehensive National Drug Observatory report to actually monitor the nature, magnitude, patterns, and trends in the drug trafficking and drug use. Section 5 of the bill provides for the National Agency to be a body corporate. Section 6 provides for it to have the following divisions: a policy research and strategy division, a treatment and rehabilitation services division, a prevention and public awareness division, an HIV and AIDS prevention and care coordination division, and such other divisions as the board may, with approval of the minister, set up. Section 7 of the bill defines the responsibilities of the agency, which are reducing the demands of drugs, coordinating the reduction of supply of drugs by preventing, reducing, or disrupting the entry, production, and availability of drugs. Section 8 of the bill defines the functions of the 6 divisions of the agency. In a nutshell, each division will have distinct responsibility and thus contribute to the overall functioning of the agency. The Supply Reduction and Coordination Division will coordinate national law enforcement efforts to ensure compliance with local, national, and international drug control laws and international conventions. It will also facilitate cooperation with the police the Customs and Excise Department and the Mauritius Revenue Authority, and also local and international organizations. More importantly, it will assist the Financial Intelligence Unit and other relevant organizations, such as the National Crime Agency, for which we will legislate very soon, in due course, in tracing and detecting money laundering and forensic financial trades related to drug trafficking. The Treatment and Rehabilitation Services Division will work in close collaboration with the Ministry of Health, the NGOs, and the Drug Users Administrative Panel for the treatment and rehabilitation of persons who use drugs and their social integration back into society. It will also establish and manage, in collaboration with the private sector and relevant government organizations, vocational training and employment programs for persons who are recovering from drug use disorders. The Prevention and Public Awareness Division will lead national awareness campaigns, carry out workshops, and develop and implement a family-based drug prevention program. Section 9 of the bill provides for the setting up of a drug control board for the administration and management of the NADC. There will be a chairperson and representatives of various ministries and organizations, as well as representatives of civil society. Section 18 of the bill provides for the agency to prepare an annual report and submit to the minister together with an audited statement of accounts in every financial year. This was totally lacking before. Section 21 of the bill provides for no liability, civil or criminal, which shall attach to the NADC, the board or a board member, a committee member, or any officer in respect to any act done or omitted to be done in good faith. It has to be in good faith in the discharge of his function under the Act. Section 25 of the bill provides for the protection of whistleblowers to encourage reporting of illicit activities. We will be careful because we know how Mauritius is. There will be some fake whistleblowers as well. We will be very careful with this. No civil or criminal action shall be taken against any person who makes a report or disclosure. It has to be in good faith. If it is a false accusation, they will have to pay the consequences. Madam Speaker, the success of this initiative depends on a unified approach. The fight against drugs cannot be won in isolation. It is not a question of government on one side, opposition on the other. We have to work together on this. Il faut une prise de conscience collective. Il faut responsabiliser chaque Mauricien pour briser cette prolifération de la drogue qui est en train de faire des ravages dans notre pays, dans notre société, et tuer notre jeunesse, notre avenir. Government institutions, law enforcement agencies, non-governmental organizations, and the community at large must work together, hand in hand. The NADC will play a pivotal role in promoting cooperation and systemic coherence in ensuring that our interventions are aligned and effective. Furthermore, the bill prioritizes data collection and research to ensure that our strategies are continuously refined based on the latest evidence, enabling evidence-based policymaking to tackle the evolving drug landscape. A real-time monitoring system with clear performance indicators will be implemented to track drug-related trends and assess the effectiveness of intervention programs. The system will also be used to monitor patients on the methadone program, thus ensuring a better control and management. There have been in the past some complaints about where the methadone is being given. That also we will look at. The NADC will operate a 24/7 hotline specific for disclosures and work closely with law enforcement agencies to ensure swift actions on credible disclosures with the utmost confidentiality and protection for individuals involved. You know, during the last election, not just in my constituency, in many constituencies across the island, probably all constituencies, you could see people dealing with drugs. Nothing was being done. I get the feeling they were being given drugs so that they can disrupt the election. That was my feeling. What else? Don't forget Wakasho. Why did Wakasho come at the time that it came? We ask ourselves questions. We're also positioning an HIV/AIDS division under the agency within the Prime Minister's office, and this will bring several key advantages, such as enhanced intersectoral coordination, HIV and AIDS is a cross-cutting issue, as we all know, that it cannot be addressed just by the health sector alone. Locating the division within the agency at the highest level of governance will ensure all relevant ministries, that is health, education, youth, gender equality, social security and justice, are all brought together under a cohesive national framework fostering a whole of government approach. Placing HIV and AIDS division within the NADC will ensure better alignment between harm reduction strategies and national drug controls, particularly regarding needle exchange programs. This is where the connection is. Opioid substitution therapy and rehabilitation initiative. This integration will lead to smarter, more efficient, and more compassionate policies for vulnerable populations. Madam Speaker, a centrally located division will better coordinate national budgets, donor funding, technical support. It will facilitate synergy between the various partners and avoid what has happened in the past, duplication of efforts, and will ensure that our national strategies are guided by consistent policies and a unified vision. Madam Speaker, the national agency is not this bill is not just merely a piece of legislation. It is a national commitment. It represents our collective resolve. We need to safeguard the future of our youth, as I said earlier, protect our communities, and ensure that Mauritius doesn't fall victim to the far-reaching consequences of drug abuse. Madam Speaker, we have a duty to our children, to our families, to our nation, to act decisively. I urge all members of the House to support this bill, as it is a decisive step towards a drug-free Mauritius. Let us stand together in demonstrating our unflinching resolve to fight drug abuse and trafficking and secure a healthier, safer, and more prosperous future for all. Unless means of harm to stop the decline and decay we have witnessed for the last decade, every one of our children is at risk. No Mauritian family is immune from this threat. Far too many have woken up one day to the tragic realization that a son or a daughter has fallen prey to the predators and parasites who seek to prosper from this disgusting criminal trade. I remember, Madam Speaker, I went to a wedding at Kanfuku. When I came out, as usual, people wanted to take pictures with me, even when I was in the opposition. And one guy came up to me and said, "Could I take a picture with you?" I said, "Yes, no problem." He stood there, he gave the phone to one of the policemen with me, and he said to me, "You know, I want to tell you something. I had voted against Labour Party last time, but now I'm praying every day that you come back to power, because my son has fallen into drug abuse. He's coming at home, he's beating up his mother, beating up the father, stealing money, stealing jewelry, just to be able to buy drugs. This is what we have to stop. This is why I say we have a duty to act decisively. Unless, as I say, no Mauritian family is immune from this threat. And we have to stop them. In this battle against drugs, none of us should look the other way. All of us must bear the responsibility of playing our part in defeating the social poison. This social poison they have inserted into the lifeblood of our nation. That is what they've done. And in that battle, each one of us, Madam Speaker, is on the front line. I commend the bill to the House.
Thank you.